Why will China's most important alliance inevitably collapse? For decades, China has been trying to rival the United States both militarily and economically. And in 2009, they formed an alliance that Beijing believed would change the international order forever. So what exactly does this alliance look like? Well, China has done virtually everything in its power to make sure that the rest of the world knows about it. So much so that you've probably heard of it before. The BRICS is an acronym that stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These 5 countries have been characterized by their large populations, huge economic potential, and powerful regional influence. They've often been seen as emerging great powers in their own right. And collectively, the popular consensus has been that the BRICS are not just capable of reshaping the international order, but could even overthrow the United States as the world's sole superpower. But behind the headlines declaring that the BRICS will overtake the US and destroy the dollar, there are some serious problems. Let's start with Brazil, which is often hailed as the second greatest power in the Americas behind the US itself. And that sounds pretty formidable. The only problem is that the country has struggled with political instability for the better part of 20 years. Brazil's history of electing Marxist leaders to office has led to widespread political corruption and economic mismanagement, resulting in an economy that is smaller today than it was 10 years ago. Then there's Russia. More than 30 years after the Cold War, Russia is a shadow of its former self, fighting decades of economic stagnation, isolation on the world stage, and chronic government corruption. Aside from a handful of countries, Moscow has lost its influence that it used to hold in its own backyard, to the point now that Russia is locked in a bloody war in Ukraine that has exposed the weakness of both its military and economy, an economy that's even smaller than that of South Korea. But what about India? Oh, you mean the country that has gone to war with China twice, had numerous bloody border clashes, and is currently competing for regional influence? Not to mention the fact that public polling suggests that the majority of Indians see China as their country's greatest threat. Now, maybe it's just me, but I'm not sure armed conflict mixed with widespread distrust makes for the most stable of alliances. Finally, there's South Africa. And despite being one of the most powerful countries in Africa, it has problems shared by virtually every other country in the BRICS system. Extreme political corruption, a failing economy, violent crime, and sky-high unemployment. In fact, it has gotten so bad that there are growing fears that South Africa could actually end up as a failed state. So all in all, this looks pretty bad. So why does China hold out that BRICS can succeed? Well, because quite frankly, it needs it to, and it's been willing to dish out money to develop its reputation. But wishful thinking and disdain for the United States is not what strong and lasting alliances are made of. And perhaps the greatest problem China will be facing in the next 10 years is that its own economic and political troubles are about to seriously diminish its ability to throw money around. And once Chinese foreign investment dries up, so will the alliance.